Welcome to This Explainer. Really great to have you here. So, you know the old business adage, right? The only constant in life, and man, especially in the corporate world, is change. Adapting to shifting environments, new tech, internal restructuring, it's just not an option anymore. It's an inescapable reality. If we want our organizations to actually survive and thrive, we absolutely have to master it. And today, that's exactly what we're going to unpack. We're diving deep into change management with a huge focus on the highly effective DPIS model. Okay, let's take a quick look at our agenda. We're taking a macro to micro approach today. We'll start with the inevitability of change, then navigate the human element and explore Lewin's foundational model. From there, we'll unpack the DPIS framework itself and wrap up with how to actually sustain the new normal.
So I want to kick things off by posing a really crucial question to you. Why do so many well-funded, incredibly intelligent companies completely fail at adapting? Just think about it. The strategies look totally perfect on paper, the budgets get approved, and yet the transition just falls flat. Why? Well, it almost always comes down to this massive natural tension between an organization's urgent need to evolve and our deeply ingrained human instinct to resist that exact evolution. We get comfortable, right? And dismantling that inertia, it's incredibly hard.
Which brings us to Section 1, the inevitability of change.
Let's start at the macro level. What actually is organizational change management? As you can see, it's a structured process of implementing operational, technological, strategic, or mission shifts. But here's the really important part. The main mission, the true core of all this, is helping employees adopt that change in their everyday work to achieve a desired outcome. Think about it. If your people don't change how they operate on a daily basis, the organization doesn't change, period.
That leads us right into Section 2, navigating the human element.
Because, look, change doesn't happen to corporate buildings, and it doesn't happen to profit and loss statements. It happens to people. And empathy is going to be your absolute greatest tool here. Transitioning from the old, comfortable way of doing things to a completely unfamiliar way it's emotionally exhausting. People have to dismantle their old ways to finally reach acceptance. It usually starts with denial, basically a state of shock and a temporary defense mechanism. Think of legacy companies like Nokia initially denying the whole smartphone revolution. That denial then quickly turns to anger, either directed inwardly or at the competition. Then comes bargaining, where employees try to experiment and kind of renegotiate the change. When that doesn't work out, depression can set in, bringing sadness, fear, or regret about losing the good old days. But finally, if you manage it right, we break through to acceptance. This is where individuals actually integrate the new realities and move ahead. Recognizing this very real struggle is absolutely step one.
So how do we get them there? Section 3, Lewin's foundational change model.
To guide people through those heavy emotions, we need a bridge. And that's where Kurt Lewin's change model comes in. Before you can lock in any new organizational behaviors, you have to systematically unfreeze the current state, make the change, and then refreeze. It's such a beautifully simple yet totally profound way to view organizational transformation and really dismantle that human inertia we talked about.
Let's break down exactly how this flows. It starts with unfreezing. This is literally taking a pickaxe to the current status quo by minimizing the attitudes that keep behavior stuck at its existing level. You're actively prepping the ground. Then, once the ground is prepped, you trigger the adjustment or the change phase. This is where you implement fresh perspectives, move departments around, and deliberately tamper with the current system. Finally, once the new way is adopted, you initiate refreezing. You stabilize the new organizational balance and lock those newly adopted behaviors into place with firm processes. All right, we've reached the climax of our explainer. Section 4, the DPIS framework unpacked.
So we understand the human element, and we get Lewin's theory of unfreezing and refreezing. Now, I want you to memorize these 4 letters, DPIS, because this acronym is exactly how you transform what could be a terrifying, super ambiguous corporate mandate into a manageable, systematic evolution. It stands for define, plan, implement, and sustain.
Let's look at how these first 2 phases naturally feed into one another. Define is all about absolute clarity. You have to determine exactly what is required and clearly define the scope of the innovation, whether that's a new product, a process, whatever it is. And defining that scope makes the next phase, plan, absolutely essential, because you simply cannot navigate the shift without a comprehensive strategy. You have to plan exactly how you're going to convey this change from top leadership all the way down to every single stakeholder.
Then we move to the final two phases. And this is where theory becomes reality. Implement is the actual execution. And notice here that our sources heavily emphasize doing this through continuous communication from leaders. It's definitely not just a one-and-done email announcement. And this direct implementation directly sets up your ability to sustain. Sustaining is all about maintaining the change over the long term so it has a lasting impact. It is quite literally Lewin's refreezing phase in action.
And that brings us to our final section, Section 5, Sustaining the New Normal.
Look, rolling out a change is one thing, but stopping the organization from immediately snapping back to its old habits, that's a whole different challenge entirely. You have to rely on established structural mechanisms to really anchor the new normal. You can kind of think of them in pairs. First, information and planning systems work together to establish new benchmarks and get timely data to managers. Next, control and appraisal systems act as your quality assurance. They make sure actual results match the new targets and evaluate how folks are performing under the new rules. Finally, the development and motivation systems ensure your people actually have the skills to succeed and are energized to do it. Honestly, the motivation system is arguably the most critical one here because it directly links rewards to the new performance metrics. If you change the process but you keep the old reward structure, the change will absolutely fail. These 6 systems are what lock the new behaviors permanently into place.
So I want to leave you with this provocative final thought today. Take a hard look at your own teams. Is your organization actively, intentionally leading change, or are you just constantly reacting to external shocks? By anticipating the emotional stages of your team, applying Lewin's unfreezing and refreezing concepts, and really strictly executing the define, plan, implement, and sustain phases of the DPIS model, you can build an organization that's designed to thrive, not just survive. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really encourage you to take these insights and start defining your next big leap forward today.